Good evening. It is March 8th, 2022, 7 p.m. Welcome to the San Marino Unified School District Board of Education meeting. Here is your board president, Mrs. Namjack.
Thank you, Dr. Choi. I'd like to report out of closed session. And for the March 8th, 2022 closed session, the Board of Education took unanimous action in closed session to approve the non-re-election of the following certificated employees whose employee numbers end with 506, 765, 939, and 722. So that is my report out of closed session. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'd like everybody to stand.
Oh, yeah, our student. Thank you, President Jack. Tonight it's my pleasure to introduce our amazing San Marino High School student, Alexander Schwang, to lead our board in the flag salute tonight.
Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Oh, would you like to say a little bit about yourself and about your amazing high school?
Of course. My name is Alex Schwang. I'm a current senior at San Marino High School. I am a part of ASB, the Interclub Council President. San Marino High School is incredible for just so many different reasons. I could name 10 things off the top of my head on why we're better than other school districts. But if I had to say one thing, it's truly our sense of community that makes us so strong and keeps us so great. That every student, every teacher, every administrator, every parent works so hard to just make our school so great.
Thank you so much.
And so we have a certificate to provide you with for leading us in the pledge. And we'd like to take just a quick picture with the board president right here in the center. Oh, okay, great. Come on up.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. You're a prime example of why the high school is so great. Yes.
Okay. Now I would like a motion to approve the agenda, but I'd like to amend the agenda myself to move the consent section number 8 until after we have heard the informational items, specifically 11D. So I'd like to move the consent section to between 11 and 12, if that is all right, so we can listen to 11D before we vote on 8.
Second.
The entire consent section or just specific?
We might as well just do the entire one.
Second.
Is that all right? Okay. All right. So, Mr. Chang, would you make a motion? Did you make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. We will approve for the consent section from AA to AI, except the AE. And the AE will wait until we go to the
Right before number 12.
number 12. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Mr. Chang, would you like to have us vote on 8A to 8F before? Or shall we have the entire number 8 be done after be voted on?
Either way. Yeah.
Okay, maybe it'll be easier just to have the entire consent section moved to right after 11, between 11 and 12.
Okay.
So the motion is to move the entire consent section of 8A through I to be heard after 11B. I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? No, roll call vote. Mrs. Ryan? Aye. Mrs. Chan?
Aye.
Mr. Chang?
Aye.
Mr. Kalaki?
Aye.
Right. Namjack, aye. All right. Motion to approve the agenda or modified agenda passes. Now we need a motion to approve the minutes. It's an action item. We need to go over them one by one. So could I have a motion to approve the February 2nd special board meeting agenda? I mean, minutes.
I move to approve the special board meeting minutes on February 2nd.
Mrs. Chan, is there a second?
What second?
Mr. Kalaki, roll call vote. Mr. Kalaki?
Aye.
Mr. Chang?
Aye.
Mrs. Chan?
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan? Aye. Namjack, aye. Could I have a motion to approve the February 8th, 22 regular board meeting minutes?
I move to approve the February 8th regular board meeting minutes.
Mrs. Chan, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Chang, roll call vote. Mrs. Ryan? Aye. Mr. Kalaki?
Aye.
Mr. Chang?
Aye.
Mrs. Chan?
Aye.
Namjack, aye. Is there a motion to approve the February 17th special board meeting minutes?
I move to approve for the February 17th special board meeting.
Mr. Chang, is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Chan, roll call vote. Mr. Kalaki?
Aye.
Mr. Chang?
Aye.
Mrs. Chan?
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan? Aye. Namjack, aye.
Stephen Bo.
Student board member.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. All right. Public comments. The Board of Education has adopted Board Policy 9323B to ensure the public's right to be heard in any matters pertaining to the school district. Persons who wish to provide public comment will have three options: submit through an online form, request to speak during the meeting via Zoom, request to speak during the meeting in person via the public comment card. If you want to submit the online form, the public may submit public comments for the open or closed session on March 8th from 11 a.m. through 3:30. Comments received during this time will not be read during the meeting, but will be provided to the board. I believe we received one comment.
Right.
Request to speak during the meeting via Zoom. During public comment, the meeting will pause for 1 minute to take requests to speak. The raise hand function is used to take requests during the public comment period. For online attendees, press the raise hand icon to add yourself to the queue. For phone attendees, dial *9. The speaking order will be determined based on the order of requests received. Individual speakers will be unmuted and called to speak.
Thank you, President Jack. We're pausing for 1 minute to take requests to speak regarding matters that are not on the agenda. If you'd like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. Thirty seconds remain. If you'd like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. President Check, we have no requests.
All right. Request to speak during the meeting in person via the public comment card. Please complete the public comment card and submit the completed card to the designated drop box of the assistant to the superintendent. No later than when the agenda section items not on the agenda, consent information or action is called by the board president. Opportunities for public comment are offered prior to the closed session, at the start of the regular open session for items not on the agenda, and prior to the consent information action items for matters on the agenda. The board reserves the right to add a public comment period prior to any individual item on the agenda. 5 minutes may be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 20 minutes to each subject matter. However, in the event there are more than 4 speakers on the same subject matter, the board president retains the discretion to adjust and limit the time allocated to each speaker to ensure that all wishing to speak will be heard within the 20-minute allotment. Communications from the audience regarding matters not on the agenda are to be made at this time. Do we have any public comment cards? All right, communications from the audience regarding matters on the consent section are to be made at this time. Do we have any public comment cards? All right, we are now going to skip over 8 and we will go to the communication section. Communications from the board. We'd like to start with Mr. Kalaki.
I'm sorry, are we gonna open
Do we want to do public comment via Zoom for the consent section?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Now, or do
Yes,
we-
let's wait until
Fine.
we get to the consent section.
Okay, so
Yes.
board communication?
Yes.
Okay, over the last couple of weeks, I've had some great opportunities to watch some of our students participate on multiple occasions where I judged speech and debate state qualifying competitions. Both, I think, held at Arroyo High School and also Sure High School. And then also had the opportunity to watch the musical, which at the high school, which was a phenomenal performance. The students clearly had a great time. They did a wonderful job, and so they should really be congratulated for that. And then I also had a good meeting this morning with the committee for the superintendent search. And so I'm glad that that process is moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Kalaki. Mr. Chang?
February 24, Thursday, I attend the Huntington Middle School showcase. I think that this is probably the first time. So we are doing provide the entire student activity to show the community. I think it's very good for recruitment for the fifth grade elementary school student. And in the meantime, I see the middle school wellness center office already finished. I think that's gorgeous. I think that will help the student for relieve for some of the pressure. February 26th, Saturday, I attend the San Marino National Little League open house. This once a year. Yeah, congratulations for the new president before the entire the player team. And then March 1st, Tuesday, I also attend a special school board meeting. And March 2nd, I attend the Huntington Medical Research Institute board retreat. Even this is not directly related to our school, but when I sit in the board, I always advocate, they need a research center. They need to give the high school student or college student for the internship. So probably they will continue to provide the opportunity. And then March 4, I also, Friday, I also attend actually it's a Saturday, I also attend a musical show at the San Marino High School. Thank you for everyone come out this wonderful show. I enjoy it once a year.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. Mrs. John?
I attended the online Zoom grade scheduling meeting for ninth graders. I also attended the HMS showcase, like my colleagues here, and I wanted to note a couple things that sort of stood out to me were in addition to the activities that the tables that were being manned, there were also these things called hangouts at the middle school, which I thought were really neat because those were teachers who were just literally taking time to hang out with the students. And it might be games, or one of them was actually a garden. If you haven't been on the Huntington campus lately, they actually completely converted the whole garden space. And it's being used with a lot of students as a hangout, as well as just really a lot of hands-on work. And I just thought that was so impressive for these teachers to be putting all that time in. And I also got to see the wellness room that Ms. Gonzalez was able to work on. And that was just this amazing, beautiful space where the kids, again, could just hang out and refresh. I attended the Little League opening day ceremonies and the musical at the high school as well. And I also went to the Carver parent party this weekend, which was very fun. It felt really normal, which was kind of crazy because the last parent party was before the pandemic. And so I found myself sort of just thinking and reflecting back on some of where we've been in the last 2 years. And I feel really excited because I see us being on the precipice once again, but in a good way. I think the last couple of years have been really difficult between financial woes and staffing woes. And it's been traumatic, honestly. And I think a lot of times people felt like, how are we going to get out of it? And how are we going to get past it? And yet I've mentioned, I've been reading this book about trauma and resilience. And there were 3 features that were talked about in the book. Talked about people who exhibit resilience are those who are optimistic about the future. They have confidence in their success to overcome their obstacles, and they have a willingness to see the obstacle as a challenge rather than a threat. And I feel so incredibly proud of San Marino students and teachers and staff and parents and our community, because I feel that we have exhibited those qualities and gotten us past some really difficult times. And though we have some difficult times ahead, I'm sure, as we still tackle everything else there is to tackle, I'm just really appreciative of the foundation I see being rebuilt with just a lot of real open dialogue and conversations and respect for each other's perspectives and opinions, and mostly a rebuilding of trust, which I think has been really difficult to find in society in general. And so I really just appreciate all of that that's just been accomplished these last couple of years as we've gone through everything.
Thank you, Mrs. Chan. Mrs. Ryan?
Thank you, Mrs. Jack. My fellow board members have reported on most of all the activities I've been engaged in. I was just amazed at the Huntington Middle School showcase. It not only showcased our students at their best, but also it's in recognition of the staff, the support staff and the faculty and how hard they work. So thank you to the administrative team at Huntington Middle School. Then I traveled over to San Marino High School, where I experienced Band Geek, and what a wonderful performance. Talented students, well performed. And in terms of what we're looking at in terms of the return to what's normal, that was indicative of how hard our students work, but the performance itself was fabulous. And then finally, I joined Ms. Chong at the Carver Parent Party, along with Dr. Delatorre, Dr. Delatorre. And Carver Parent Party was fun. It was fun. It was put on by 2 dads who just, I don't know, they did a really good job. They made it fun. And it was a good return to the way things are in terms of us getting together and just enjoying each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ryan. So what I'd like to report are, as president, I attended the PTA Council meeting where we have all the PTA presidents. And again, I think there was a feeling of, we're all going to get back to normalcy. So I think that seems to be the theme. Then also attended with Dr. Delatorre, the San Marino Schools Foundation meeting. They're doing very well in their fundraising, but if you have not donated already, I would encourage you to do so. And then as a past Little League president, I attended the Little League past presidents brunch. And it is amazing to think that Little League has been here in San Marino for 70 years. So there were people that I didn't even recognize that were there early on. Of course, I'm sure that the new presidents didn't recognize me because that was very back in the olden days again. Anyway, so thank you. And Ms. Hyun, as our student board member.
What I saw Band Geeks was really cool, and I also had the task testing today, which was lovely as always. And I think people actually tried harder this year than last year, so that's promising. That's all though. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we have our communications from Dr. Delatorre.
Thank you, President Jack, members of the board. We have been very, very busy at the district office, and this time of year, things ramp up. We have lots of mid to end of years activities that we are participating in. And I too attended the Little League opening day, and it was just such a special time to see all of these children out there with just big smiles on their faces, outdoors, no masks on, able to really enjoy the day. The weather was perfect. Parents were just as excited as they could be. And I really thought that that was a moment in time where, families were able to start to get back to normal a little bit and just really enjoy a little bit of normalcy. So that was a lot of fun. I also attended Band Geeks at the high school, and it was amazing, phenomenal. The talent that those students exhibited on stage was just thrilling to watch. And Gracie Modine's voice is that of an angel. She also sang the national anthem at Little League opening day. And really, this is a young lady at our high school that has an abundance of talent, and just it was amazing to see her on stage along with all the other students. Catherine Oliveras' daughter was up there, just high energy, and they were wearing shields. As you all know, we'll be able to have masking be optional on March 12th and after. And so, we got an email, can we please not have to wear masks on stage because we're so close to the deadline? And yes, you have to wear masks on stage because we're not there yet. And we are all rule followers. And so we weren't able to make accommodations there. So they had the masks on, and you could still see their expressions and just their body language. And it was thrilling to watch that. So I really did enjoy it. And then the next day I attended the Robotics Exhibition, and they were showing their parents and supporters and educators what these two robots that they have been building can do. And they're preparing for competitions. So they had one robot out there that was able to shoot hoops. So they had a hoop out there, and this robot was able to project the ball into the air, and it would inevitably fall through the hoop, which was very impressive. And they had another robot that was able to do pull-ups. And so its arms would slowly go up, and it would grasp this bar, and it would pull itself up, which I thought was very impressive because I can't even do that. So it was thrilling to see what the kids were able to build from scratch. And I also learned that we have longstanding sponsors for the robotics team in JPL and in Boeing. And so we had parents that used to be very involved with their children in schools here who are still involved through their companies from Boeing and JPL. Jeng Yen and Robert French were both there, and they donate a considerable amount of money through their companies to support the teams through their competition. So we're very grateful to them and for their support. And seeing them out there on a Saturday to support the team was great. Also, we just wanted to remind everyone that we are flying and posting 2 elementary principal positions, one at Carver and one at Valentine. We're very sorry to see Alana Foray leaving. She's had a remarkable career here in San Marino. She's been an outstanding principal and an advocate for children. We are sad to see her go, but we're happy for her in that she's going to get to spend a lot of time with her children and her grandchildren, and she plans to be moving out of state. And then Dr. Lin is being moved up to the district office. He's been promoted to our chief business official. So we're super excited about him joining our district office team. So we're going to have to find a principal to take his place at Carver, which will not be easy. I know he's very beloved there. So we're planning to look at the survey results, because we sent a survey out to all stakeholders to solicit their input on what traits and characteristics they would like to see in their new principal. Judy Correnti, who is the Human Resources Coordinator, and I have gone out to both elementary schools to meet with certificated and classified stakeholders to solicit their feedback and input. We had some really great meetings with them. We're going to take all of that data. We're going to put it together and create a principal profile that will reflect the candidate and the type of candidate that we're going to be looking for. We are planning to have somebody in both positions by the end of April. It's going to be middle to end of April. So that's our goal, and we're super excited, and I hope everyone is too. We're going to really look forward to that process. We are also looking at and studying the feasibility of a dual language immersion program at the elementary. We're looking at piloting that program. We have sent out a survey to all of our TK parents to gauge their interest in that program. We are also evaluating our career technical education programs at San Marino High School. We have also sent a survey out to both parents and students on all of the CTE pathways that are out there, the ones that we would like them to rank the CTE pathways that they are interested in order one through five, right? One being the most important, five being the least important. So we plan to get all of that data together, and we are going to be bringing it back before the Board of Education on the 21st, which is our next regularly scheduled meeting. So we're excited about that. Carver's parent party, as everyone said, who attended it, Mrs. Chan and Mrs. Ryan, it was amazing. It was so much fun. And it was, as Mrs. Ryan said, it was co-chaired by two fathers. And that's the first time in our history that we've ever had fathers working so hard, doing all the heavy lifting to put this amazing event together. And it was phenomenal. The theme was Back to the Future. So Dr. Lin had his Doc Brown wig on, and there was a DeLorean, an actual DeLorean parked in front of the University Club, right? And where else other than San Marino do you have an actual DeLorean, parked out there for a parent party? So it was a lot of fun. They had a band come and play. It was great to see parents out there dancing and bidding and just having a good time. And it was really special. So that was a pleasure to attend. Other than that, we have coming up the Founders Day event. I'd like to invite everyone to attend our Founders Day event on March 23rd. It's going to be held at San Marino High School. We're super excited about that. Two of our amazing board members are going to be acknowledged and recognized for everything that makes them great. And that is Mr. Chang and of course our president, Nam Jack. And so we're super excited to honor both of them on March 23rd. So please come out and join in the fun. And I will turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Delatorre. Now we're to item number 10, communications from the audience regarding matters on the information agenda are to be made at this time.
Thank you, President Jack. So now we are taking requests. We're pausing for 1 minute to take requests to speak regarding matters in the information items section of the agenda. If you'd like to make a request, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. We have 30 seconds remaining. If you'd like to make a request to speak regarding matters in the information section of the agenda, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. And President Jack, we have no requests.
All right, so now we're going to go to item number 11, 11A, San Marino High School girls varsity basketball recognition. Elizabeth Reuter. Coach, if you could say a few words, we would love it. Please come up to the podium.
All right. All right. Good evening, President Jack, Superintendent Dr. De La Torre, board members and administration. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Elizabeth Reuter, and this is my second season as varsity girls basketball coach here at San Marino. Coming into this season, I knew this group had the on-court talent and motivation to move San Marino girls basketball forward and back into the playoffs. While we improve with every practice and game, our biggest improvement lied in the confidence in our girls. In the beginning of the season, even though we were winning games, it felt like Coach DJ and I had to convince our girls that we were good. We started the year 5-0 and they still didn't quite believe they were deserving of that record. And they deserved it. They deserved you winning every single game. As a coach, you never know if and when your team will have that turning point in a season. But that moment happened for us once our girls started to realize their abilities and they turned their full focus into being their best on the court and off the court. We never had an easy game, and we were better off because of that. The tenacity of our girls brought us into the playoffs and also earned our program's first win in the playoffs since 2019. Though we lost in the second round in a heartbreaking game by 2, I couldn't be more proud of this incredible group of young women. Coach DJ and I knew that these girls were going to battle for each other night in and night out till the very end. We would always tell them that they would run through a wall for each other, and it was true. Those are the best moments when you're a coach. Those are the moments that we coach for. The support of our families, administration, the board, and the community as a whole is so appreciated by Coach DJ, the girls, and myself. Basketball is only one of the many high school experiences for our girls, and having the support of the community makes it even more fulfilling. For me, not much compares to the energy of a crowded gym during a big game. I'm excited to continue building our program and to prepare for those big games ahead. I think this season put some teams in league. We're in their heads now. You know, we are on notice now. A lot of people would just look at San Marino and say, oh, we don't have to worry about them. But I think we're beginning to change that. We are only going to keep improving and surprising teams. I could go on and on about these girls. You can ask Mrs. Shelley, she went to our banquet last year. But instead, I'd like to invite Elena Lee up to speak a little bit about her experience here. Thank you everyone for having us.
Good evening, school board members, parents, and spectators. My name is Elena Lee, and I'm one of the captains of this year's SMHS girls varsity basketball team. First of all, thank you so much for inviting us here today. Playing through the pandemic was no easy feat. I was constantly scared that this season would be ripped away from us. But despite it all, we made it. Games were rescheduled, trips were canceled, but despite it all, these girls never let it bring them down. In fact, they took it in stride. They showed up every day ready to push themselves harder. From simple drills like shooting free throws to brutal conditioning. They went 110% and managed to laugh after it all. There is a saying that friendship is tested and proven through adversity. And boy, was there a lot of adversity. These girls are so hardworking and admirable in their own unique ways. Over the course of the season, we've become so close as a team. We understand each other and hold each other accountable for both our triumphs and our mistakes. As a team, I think we've all learned how to be flexible, how to roll with whatever life gives us. Despite uncertainty or unease, we've always been there to support each other and see the bright light in everything. We've learned the importance of communication, and with our hard work, have pushed each other and ourselves past our limits. I'd also love to thank Coach DJ and Coach Reuter. They always knew the right thing to say and taught us both basketball and life lessons. They're the reason that we had so much success this year. As a senior, this was my first and last time going to playoffs. We worked immensely hard to get there, and the feeling was so new and exhilarating. It was so exciting to go into every game, not knowing if it was your last, but with the conviction that we were going to give it everything we had. And although we unfortunately fell short in the second round, I'm so proud that we went out fighting in an extremely close game. And I'm so excited to see what this team can do in the years to come. On behalf of the rest of the team, I can definitely say that this season was unforgettable. We always say this, that this is the last time this team will ever be exactly like this, and to make sure that we make every moment count. And I believe we did. Thank you so much to the board, the communities, and our families for always supporting us throughout everything. I hope you will continue to support SMHS girls basketball in the future. Thank you.
Say congratulations to the team, to the coaches, to the principals sitting in the back. We are so proud of your efforts and your successes this year. We have a certificate for the team, so I'm going to ask that the coaches and the team, the entire Board of Education and the principal come up to take a photograph, and I will present you with the certificate. It's going to be a tight squeeze, I think, but we can do this. There you go. This is good. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, basketball team.
Yeah. You should be. Jason.
He's just sitting down.
Yeah, he's staying. Yeah, he's staying. Yes, he's staying. Okay.
All right, now we're going to go on to another topic which always makes my heart sing, which is the National Merit Scholarship finalists. Principal Kirkenbach, we would like to recognize your amazing students.
I very much would, although I think it is very rude to make me speak after Elena Lee.
Hard act to follow.
Been following her around since middle school, and it's not got any easier. These wonderful people come in. All right. Good evening, President Jack, members of the board, Superintendent De La Torre, student board member, and district administration. It is San Marino High School's pleasure and honor to recognize our 15 now National Merit finalists. Tonight with us, we have Chelsea An, Randy Kai, Lucas Chen, Marcus Chua, Marlene Ketlar, Dao Lin, Ryan Q, Connor Sund, Anya Tang, not here tonight, I believe, Amber Tang, Zihao Wang, Camden Wu, Sophia Yao, Victor Yao, and Yuzhang Zhang. These San Marino seniors are truly exceptional people. This month, those who will be selected to receive a National Merit Scholarship will be notified with a confidential correspondence to San Marino High School from the National Merit Scholarship Corporation. I'm excited every day to check the mail now. About 7,500 out of 15,000 National Merit Scholarship finalists will receive an offer for a scholarship this year. There will be 2,500 single payment National Merit $2,500 scholarships, about 1,000 corporate sponsored Merit Scholarship Awards, and about 4,000 college sponsored Merit Scholarship Awards. All are chosen based on their abilities, their accomplishments, and their potential for success in rigorous college studies. Although all students who become finalists are outstanding, not all finalists will receive a merit scholarship award. Again, out of 15,000 finalists for the 2022 program, about half will win an award, and no student will receive more than one scholarship offer. Please join me in congratulating these amazing seniors and wish them luck in the next month.
Principal Kurtenbach, I'm going to ask you to distribute the certificates for each of our national. And then we'll take a photograph in the center of the room if that's okay.
Chelsea? Wow. Sophia? Victor? Ziha? Lucas? Got it. Marlene? Ryan? Nicely done, Ryan. Ziyang? Honor? Amber? Camden? Here, and they want to take another picture too.
And can we get the entire board and Principal Kurtenbach?
I'll take these.
I think he called my name on YouTube.
Okay, yeah.
So we're going to be challenging the flag. You should know why you're up, right? And then tall and statuesque in the back. Let's see. Get you guys to scoot in a little bit more. And let's make sure we can see everybody. You guys just scoot in a little bit more. Good? Oops, I want to show your certificate of this. Okay.
Everyone look right here in the center. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Anybody else? Everybody else.
Okay. Proud of each one of you. Thank you.
It is too long. Turn it. Steven.
Okay, now we're going to go to matter number 11C, A through G Completion Improvement Grant. Dr. Lena Richter and Principal Kirkenbach will present the board with the A to G Completion Improvement Grant Plan.
Thank you, President Jack, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Delatorre, and Cabinet. Tonight, it is our pleasure to present the board with an overview of the A through G Completion Improvement Grant for San Marino Unified. As part of the Budget Act of 2021, one-time funds were provided to school districts through the A through G Completion Improvement Grant for the purpose of providing additional support to help increase the number of high school students, particularly unduplicated students who graduate from high school with an A through G eligibility, as well as provide increased access and resources to complete A through G courses. The A through G Completion Improvement Grant includes the A through G Success Grant and the A through G Learning Loss Mitigation Grant. The A through G Success Grant allocates funds to districts who have a 2021 A through G completion rate of 67% or higher to directly support students who complete A through G requirements. San Marino's A through G Success Grant allocation is $180,073. The A through G Learning Loss Mitigation Grant allocates funds to help create opportunities for pupils who received a D or failed an A through G approved course in the spring of 2021 or the 2020-21 school year, so that they are able to retake these courses. San Marino's A through G Learning Loss Mitigation Grant allocation is $14,538. San Marino is scheduled to receive a total of $194,611 total apportionment for these two grants. Per Ed Code, a plan must be presented to the board at a regularly scheduled board meeting and recommended for adoption at a subsequent board meeting prior to April 1st, 2022. At this time, I would like to hand it over to Principal Kurtenbach, who will provide the board with an overview of San Marino Unified's A through G Completion Improvement Grant.
Thank you, Dr. Richter. First of all, thank you for finding this grant and for getting it to us. Obviously, the state did what they normally do, gave us about 20 minutes to try to figure this out, and I think we did an excellent job. What we did is we did an overview of our last 4 semesters of school, pretty much from pandemic to now, and we reviewed any student who earned a D or lower in any A through G course. And that's what we use to determine how many students would be affected by this. Some of those students probably have graduated, but that was the data that we were told to go from the point at which the pandemic hit to now. What would you like to mitigate? The primary focus of the 14,538 is really our summer school program. It's going to supplement the program that we've always done. Typically, we've provided an Algebra 1, geometry, and then an English recovery. But we're going to be able to expand that and go into some of the sciences, which are A through G, some of the higher level math potentially, and some of the CTE courses and elective courses, so that students who weren't able to earn the grades that they need to be A through G eligible, which is a C or better, could get those recovered during the summertime. Generally, we don't have enough students, say in like a chemistry course, to really run a course. And we may not at this point, but what we'll be able to do is pull together some online resources, have the students come and then be guided through that process, just depending on how many students qualify and then how many students choose to come. For the larger grant, we're going to focus on not just, again, enhancing some of our summer programs, because it will depend again on which courses we run or decide not to run, but also to look at next year in being able to increase that 76.7% A through G completion and get that a little bit higher. So typically at San Marino High School, if you're not A through G eligible, it's generally because you chose not to take a foreign language or to take 2 years of a foreign language. That is not part of our graduation plan. And that's something that we're going to be reviewing by looking at other graduation standards around our area and kind of gauging ourselves against them. We're going to be having our counselors do some research on programs that could help improve that rate. And we're going to look at providing some training and support to our staff who teach all of our A through G courses to increase student engagement, formative assessment. And these are the types of things that we hope will increase our students' ability to perform in those classes. Generally, some of the more difficult classes are your second or third year math classes for students who are typically not your high-performing math students. I would be one of those students. Students who struggle in high-level courses like chemistry, physics. Those are a lot more challenging sciences, and you must pass 3 years in order to be A through G eligible. So we're going to try to get some resources pulled together and other supports throughout the school year so that students don't have to remediate those courses in the summer. And that's a lot of what we're doing with the money right now, or we hope to, if you approve it.
Thank you, Principal Kurtenbach, for explaining the plan for the San Marino High School. At this point, we are providing this information as an informational item, and we hope to bring it back to the board at the next regularly scheduled board meeting with a recommendation for approval.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to go to 11D, clearance process for field trip chaperones. Dr. Delatorre and Dr. Choi will present the board with the clearance process for overnight field trip chaperones.
Thank you, President Jack, members of the board, executive team. And I am going to turn it over to Dr. Stephen Choi to provide the board with a brief presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Delatorre. Good evening, President Jack, members of the board, student board representative and executive team. So tonight I'd like to present an overview of the system that we currently have in place, which is the Raptor Visitor Management System, and then sort of segue into a module that is also part of the Raptor system. And that module is the Volunteer Management System, and provide you how we are able to leverage an existing system to provide a chaperone background check, as you will see, in terms of how we are also updating the process to achieve that goal. So first off, we have a fairly new Raptor visitor management system at all of our schools. All visitors entering on campus are to register for the very first time, if it's their first time on campus. And after the first time, you can bring in any government issued ID, scan that ID, and be issued a Raptor badge. Now that Raptor badge, before you can get that Raptor badge, the system will do a very quick check on the various sex offender databases that are available. And just to provide you with a visual, this is what a typical visitor badge looks like. It'll have the name of the individual. It is time and date stamped. It'll have a photo that is captured from the government issued ID. It'll also include the destination and the school site. So when it came time to look at providing a background check of our chaperones for overnight field trips, we consulted with Raptor and learned that they also provide a volunteer management system that resides within the same Raptor visitor management system. So when volunteers get registered into the system, they too will also be scanned against a sex offender database. And when that individual is cleared, a volunteer label will be printed. So what we did was we didn't want to reinvent the wheel when we wanted to find a process to check for background or sex offender databases. We wanted to leverage an existing system. And looking at our current process, all of our chaperones at this time do complete a statement of acknowledgement and consent, or an application to be a chaperone.
Can you make that a little bit bigger so the board is better able to read it?
Yeah, let me see if I can zoom in on here. It might be easier if I just zoom in here. So this adult chaperone form, let me make it even, see if I can make it a little bit bigger. We're not looking at revising the chaperone form. What we're looking at doing is actually just augmenting what we have with the technology that we have in place. And when I looked at this form, there was this huge blank space at the bottom right. And, it made sense for us to incorporate the technology that we have from the Raptor system, incorporate into an existing process that we will be implementing, that we are currently implementing. So in terms of just trying to streamline the process, yet at the same time leverage that background check, we are having all of our chaperones register if it's their first time volunteering for the school in the Raptor system. And if they are returning, they simply have to bring in a government issued ID, like a driver's license, and do a scan. It'll run the background check, and then it will issue the same badge that we use for visitors. And in terms of process, it's not tremendously different. We are updating the guidelines that are in the field trip packets to ensure that this process is incorporated. Each of the school site offices are prepared to register chaperones and also perform the sex offender check and provide a clear label. And finally, chaperones are required to submit this field trip chaperone application with the Raptor label at least 1 week prior to the scheduled trip. So that concludes summary of us incorporating that technology into the process of verifying our chaperones. I'm open to any questions.
Mr. Clackey, would you have some?
Yeah, can I have you just read back that last part? Is that it must be checked again a second time, no more than 1 week before the trip? Is that correct?
So after consulting with the sites, it made sense for us to make sure that the chaperones are doing that scan 1 week, at least 1 week prior to the trip. Because this information is fluid, it could potentially change, right? So we are asking all of our chaperones to run a scan 1 week, at least 1 week prior to the trip.
Meaning within the week before the trip?
Not necessarily within a week, but at least close to a week before the trip. So we don't want someone to chaperone, for example, register a year ago or 2 years ago, and then expect to use a Raptor label that's more than a week prior to the trip.
So it's
So closer towards the week.
So it's got to be run within a week before the trip. And that's what you mean by at least a week.
Yeah,
It's not
within-
more than 1 week.
Well, we were actually very concerned about volume. So a volume of chaperones that were coming in. And when we were looking at discussing this with the sites, we determined that it was more ideal to have it closer towards a week of the, but we didn't specify within the week of this. It was more like a week prior to the trip.
Yeah, but I mean, it's 1 week before, give or take a couple of days. Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I think that's accommodable. I know that when we're looking at the most recent ones that are under the consent section, those were more than a week. I believe they were performed on February 28th. So
So they could be reran a week before?
they
the
can
trip?
be rerun,
And-
yes.
And following the policy or the protocol, is that what would happen? Is they would be run again 1 week before?
So we're looking at a field trip packet form that is still largely paper-based. So what we're asking for chaperones to do is to come in at least 1 week prior to the trip. So as far as how far we're going back, could it be 3 weeks? Could it be 4 weeks prior? We don't have that policy clarified at this time.
It needs to be recent, though. We need to make sure that the background check is done, within a reasonable time period before the trip.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. So for example, we've got one of the items on the agenda tonight is an overnight trip with one of the teams. And it's an application that's being submitted for like 6 months from now, right? Next October. Well, the chaperones could go run their search today and have met the at least 1 week because we don't want to have a bottleneck in the last week before, but you would have 6-month-old data on chaperones, on overnight chaperones. So that's why I'm trying to figure out, there's a big difference between at least 1 week before and no more than 1 week before. The purpose of the no more than 1 week before would be so that as these chaperones are going on their trips, we are assured with current data that
Yeah, and we want to
everything's
make,
good.
I totally agree with you 100%. When we fingerprint employees, we have a subsequent arrest agreement on file with the Department of Justice. And so we want it to be within 1 or 2 weeks prior to the field trip that those California issued IDs are run.
So I agree with Mr. Kalaki, right? I think we just really need to make sure, and again, right, it is up to you, but I believe that it's a strong board recommendation that it be no more than 1 week. When you say at least, there's a difference between at least and a no more. So
No
that
more
would
is-
be,
yeah.
right, so, right, so I mean, at the latest, right, I mean, right, it's got to be a week. I just think, as you pointed out, Dr. Choi, right, it's fluid information, it's fluid. Many things can happen in the meantime, and obviously the day before is not going to work, but I think no more than a week is a reasonable effort.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. I would think that there doesn't seem like there would be that many overnight chaperones that are going on trips.
We have a lot of overnight chaperones, more than any other district around, because we do have more trips for students. Outdoor ed at the middle school is a good example of that, not this year because we canceled it. I also want to say, though, that I agree with you guys that it needs to be recent information. Our challenge with that is that some of these field trips, if they're out of state or out of country, we have to get them approved by the board 6 months in advance. So what I think I hear you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we shouldn't be presenting the board when you approve these trips with the security clearance, that should be done, the Raptor clearance, right? That should be done by administration 1 week.
Well, I don't have a problem with you saying, here's the proposed
Right.
chaperones and we've cleared them now, and we're
And then
gonna clear them again
later.
7 days before
Okay,
they go
and
on the trip.
That's up to you. That's not a board issue. We're
Yeah.
just approving a trip.
Right, but I'm saying you want it for those that are out of state or out of country, you do want us to present that information.
Well,
6 months
yes,
in advance,
absolutely.
right?
And
Okay.
then the execution of doing this portion the week before, that's not up to us at all.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, my other concern is, although I think it's great that there is a sex offender check being done, and I appreciate that being done, is my preference would be that there be an actual criminal background check, because there are other types of convictions that could come up that could cause problems. For example, if there was improper use of alcohol by somebody, and that's on their criminal background check, and then they're going to be going on an overnight trip with high school students, we wouldn't want that person to be supervising the students based on their criminal history. And so I think the sex offender check is very good, but I think that it would also be good if I were asked for a recommendation, I would say that we do an actual background check, a criminal background check, to find out, is there any criminal conviction that is of concern? At the same level that we have with our employees that are doing overnight checks as well. That's what my input would be.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for that input. I think we would have to do some research to check with Raptor to see whether or not they offer a service that integrates the full background check. I would imagine that there may be some options for that, and we can bring that back. And as far as the duration, it sounds like it's a reasonable request to do the scan initially with the application and to do it again within a week of the field trip.
And it would seem that the Raptor, I mean, unless you tell me you know the Raptor system better than I, but any overnight chaperone would be able to go to any of the 4 campuses and have themselves scanned on a Raptor system, right? They wouldn't have to just be scanned by the high school if they're going on a high school trip. In other words, if there's going to be a bottleneck and we have 4 Raptor sites around the district that can do these checks, couldn't we say, you know what, we're booked up at the high school, but go to Valentine. Sorry, go to Valentine.
I don't anticipate a bottleneck of chaperones happening. I don't anticipate that.
I'm sorry, you don't anticipate.
I'm sorry, my mask.
It's okay.
I don't anticipate there being a problem with these kinds of checks being done. They don't take that long at the schools. It's literally you swipe it and it takes what, a minute?
It's the initial registration that takes probably 1 or 2 minutes, and the scans are very quick.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't think that's going to even be an issue logistically. I
Okay.
think we can manage it.
Okay, great. And then as far as if Raptor doesn't offer it, I know that live scan, my understanding of live scan, and I'm not an expert on it, but my understanding of live scan is once you're registered and you identify the entity that you want your notices to be sent to. In other words, you're a chaperone and you're getting live scanned for San Marino Unified School District, and you're agreeing that you could be live scanned and have the district be notified. Anytime there is any sort of criminal, it may be an arrest, but definitely a conviction, it would automatically be reported to the district, and the district would know automatically at that point. And at that point, the person could be removed as a chaperone. So that's another option if Raptor doesn't do it, I believe, or at least worth possibly looking into.
Well, if you guys could, I mean, for now, we have the Raptor system. And so, right, we've made some inquiries, and at a future date, if you could come back with that information, that would be great.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Are there any other questions to ask?
By the way, I just want to say thank you so much. Dr. Territory and board president named Jack put this on the agenda for the safety concern. This is also very important.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad we can have this discussion. But in terms of detail, I think this is probably not in the board level, so it's administrative. Is some the issue.
And I assure you.
So then you guys
Yeah.
continue to dialogue, see how we can come out very safe and also efficient.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I assure you, there's nothing more important than
Yeah.
student safety to our executive team. And so we are taking, their safety very, very seriously. And if there's anything that we can do to improve upon the system, we're going to do that.
Thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much. So now may we go to number 8, communications from the audience regarding matters on the consent agenda are made at this time. Dr. Choi?
Thank you. Okay, we are pausing for 1 minute to take requests to speak regarding matters in the consent section. If you'd like to make a request, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. We have 30 seconds remaining. If you'd like to make a request to speak regarding matters in the consent section, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. Okay, President Chag, we have one request from Marguerite Lindsay. Marguerite, your line is now open.
Good evening. President Jack, board members, student board member, Dr. De La Torre, and cabinet. I speak to you tonight as the CSEA San Marino Chapter 120 Association President in regards to agenda item 13B. CSEA understands and realizes that San Marino Unified School District is being financially prudent in meeting its March 15th layoff deadline for classified. However, with this said, it does not lessen the sting and stress that is put upon my fellow special education paraprofessionals. This is the third year classified are hit with layoffs and the second year for special education paraprofessionals to be laid off. These layoffs affect the morale of all SMUSD employees. It is CSEA's hope that the analysis of the special education student population warrants retaining and rescinding these affected laid off employees. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. We're now going to vote on the consent section. So if someone would like to make a motion with respect to the consent section.
I move to approve the consent section.
Mrs. Chan, a second.
So moved.
Mrs. Ryan, roll call vote. Mrs. Ryan,
Aye.
Mr. Kalaki,
Aye.
Mr. Chang.
But I have a question. Can I ask?
Uh,
Ask later about the AE budget adjustment.
No, you should ask it now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay to ask now.
yes.
Okay. So you will see the San Marino Unified School District Fund 25.0 Capital Facility Fund. So proposed budget as of March 8, 2022. So there's 117,000 developer fee. Do we have an idea? So this amount is what is the period? Is that the whole year or just the couple months?
So this original budget was for 77,000. We're projecting that we're going to need have an additional 40,000 more in revenue. So our budget, as of now, what we're projecting, and it's going to be in the second interim report, is 117,000. So it's for the total year that we're projecting, that we're going to get this revenue.
I guess it's a total year, right?
Yes.
The reason I'm asking this question is very important to know the period, maybe have more money.
Yeah.
to come in.
Well,
Later.
so we've increased it by 40. There's must be a lot of development going on in our district in order for us to increase it by that amount of money.
Okay, and then the next page, the other state revenue, there's one proposed budget as of March 8. They have a 2.6 million state facility match.
Yes.
What is a match?
So what this is actually is a reimbursement from the state because we are part of the modernization program for the Barth Athletic Center. And the district fronted the dollars for that program in anticipation of getting that reimbursed from the state. We just now got the reimbursement of this $2.6 million. So this is what this is. And the county office automatically placed that reimbursement into this Fund 35. And so these dollars are meant to reimburse the district for what they fronted for that program.
So this is the one time only, right?
Yes. And it's intended for capital facility.
So can you just clarify then the restrictions on the spending for those funds?
So in Fund 35, if we left it in this fund, it can only be used for capital projects only.
Thank you.
And what if we take it out of Fund 35? Can it be used for anything else?
It would depend on where we place it or where we would move it to, which fund.
If we were to put it into the fund that would be necessary to pay for certificated or classified positions, would it be?
We could not do that because that's not reimbursing for the costs that we incurred. It's to reimburse us for those costs that were incurred for that project. But we could use it to for other capital projects.
As an example, we could use it to upgrade HVAC systems at the high school.
Absolutely.
And Carver Elementary School.
We could
to
use it for
improve air quality in those classrooms, which we're starting to do that at Huntington and Valentine to improve air quality in those classrooms for teachers and students. And we know that we're possibly going to have other variants coming down the pike in the fall and the winter of next year. So it is important that we start looking at those capital projects and we make sure that we have sufficient funds to be able to address those needs.
We could use it for deferred maintenance as well.
Right.
So when you say that you can move it to another fund, but it can only be a fund relating to capital expenditures,
Yes.
is that correct?
That
So I
would
just
be-
want to be really clear on that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because if we're trying to
Yeah.
find funds
Right.
for other things, we
Right.
just, especially for personnel, we want to make
Right.
sure, right?
Right.
So you're saying the state will not let us permit that because it's a
Well,
reimbursement with respect to
yeah,
capital?
it's a reimbursement for what we fronted for the Barth Athletic
Mhm.
Center. The state approved the modernization of that project. And so we didn't know when those dollars weren't just now released. We're way far down the road here in completing that. And so they just reimbursed us for what they would have given us had they had the money at the time.
And we're gonna need that money if we don't pass a bond. We have a lot of deferred maintenance needs coming up that we haven't been able to address. And if we don't have money in that account to be able to address those issues, I don't know what we're gonna do.
So if we had not received this 2.6 million reimbursement,
Right.
we were still moving forward with HVAC.
Because we got money from the state.
For ESSER.
COVID.
Yeah.
Through ESSER funds and they were restricted to that purpose. And so we applied that money toward the HVAC systems that are the oldest in the district. But we know that the high school and Carver are going to need the same thing, but we didn't get enough money from the state through the ESSER funds to be able to address more than 2 schools. And so, and we knew we were going to get this 2.6 million back from the state as a reimbursement. We just didn't know when. But they had committed that money to the school district.
Because we have been waiting for this
We
money
have
for
been.
about 5 years.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and so the money that we used on Carver and Valentine, or are using on Carver and Valentine, came from ESSER funds for the purpose of improving air quality in the classrooms. And that was all related to the pandemic.
I think these are really, really important questions to be asked, but I think for us now, right? I mean, these are questions we can continue to ask, but we've got a consent section item. So
Yeah.
if we don't, right? So
That's the
no-
only question I have. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, so
Yeah, okay.
the motion was on the table. We had Ms. Delatorre, what votes did we have?
Mr. Kawaki and then Mr. Chang, so we're on to Ms. Chan.
Oh,
Mr. Chen, I don't believe you voted yet.
Hmm? So I make a motion?
No, we already have a motion on the floor.
You have to vote.
Okay, yes.
Ms. Chan,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan,
Aye.
Ms. Namchak, I, student board member. All right, now we go to item number 12, communications regarding matters on the action agenda are to be made at this time.
Thank you, President Jack. We are pausing for a minute to take requests to speak regarding matters in the action items section of the agenda. If you'd like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. Thirty seconds remain. If you'd like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. President Jack, we have one request via Zoom. Okay, Morgan Liss, your line is now open.
Hi, members of the board. My name is Morgan Liss, and I'm an inclusion aide currently working at the high school. This is my 4th year with the district and 2nd year that I am now at risk for being laid off. Throughout my time here, I have gotten to know each and every one of my students on a personal level. and professional level. I have devoted much of my time to helping them and assisting the teachers of the classrooms they are in. During the coronavirus pandemic, we had to step up even more to make sure that our students were supported. The skills that I and my other coworker provide to the students are of utmost importance. Throughout my time here, I have also had the insecurities and fears of being laid off. Last year, I was laid off with it being rescinded over the summer. This is people's livelihoods and security that are being hurt by these layoffs. It is not ethical to continuously lay off employees and then rescind the notices. Currently at the high school, we are staffed just enough to support each of our students. I know other schools are also staffed that way too. Our students rely on us every day to help them not only with learning, but also socio-emotional development and behavioral support. We are what allows them to be in the least restrictive environment as mandated by state law and overall enjoy their education experience. Please reconsider the layoffs for inclusion aids. If these positions are not brought back, you are at risk. You are risking issues legally with being out of compliance with students' IEPs. And if these positions are eventually rescinded, you are risking the chance of losing highly qualified individuals who have worked with these students for years. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have, I believe, on the floor, we have Diana Webster, who would like to speak. Please come to the podium. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Diana Webster, and I have been a SPED paraprofessional in this school district since 2015. Unless you work in a classroom with our incredible, exceptional needs students day in, day out, there is no possible way that you will ever understand how demanding the work of a paraeducator is. We don't do this job because it pays well. We do this because we care about our students. We do this job because we're good at it. We do this job because it's rewarding in many ways, but most of all, we do it all for them. As paraeducators, we provide services to students of all exceptionalities and capabilities. We make it look easy, but what you don't see are the meltdowns, the behaviors, the medical conditions, the bad days, because we work hard to prevent those things from happening each day. We provide opportunities so that these students can participate in the least restrictive environments. We do our best to include them in everything so that at least while they're at school, they feel like they belong. We don't limit them. We serve as advocates for them. We encourage them and we fight for their rights to be here. With the district making cuts to the SPED department, we are once again the first in line to lose our jobs. But let's not forget, we're always the first in line to assist, support, accommodate, and advocate for our students, even when this ongoing pandemic was happening. I have dedicated many years, my time, my loyalty to the school district, as many others who will unfortunately be laid off too. These layoffs will not only affect paraeducators, they will affect your children, their classrooms, their teachers, caseworkers, specialists. These layoffs will cause litigations when IEP services can't be fulfilled. They will interrupt daily schedules in which our students thrive on. But worst of all, these layoffs will affect our kiddos with special needs directly the most. These are the most amazing humans that if you're lucky, you will ever get the chance to meet. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, now we go to action item number 13A, San Gabriel Valley SELPA Community Advisory Council alternate. Dr. Leonard Richter, you're going to recommend that we approve the appointment of Dr. Sun as an alternate?
Absolutely. Thank you, President Jack. This is a procedural item that we're bringing to the Board of Education for approval for appointment of an alternate parent representative for the Community Advisory Committee of the West San Gabriel Valley SELPA. This parent, Mr. Yung Yang Sun, has volunteered to serve as the alternate through the year 2023. Earlier this year, as required, the board approved the appointment of 2 members to the committee, 2 parent members. And tonight, the Special Education Department is seeking approval of an alternate parent representative.
All right, thank you. Would someone like to make a motion or is there discussion after our motion? Someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve. Yeah.
Mr. Chang, second? Second. Ms. Chan, roll call vote. Mrs. Ryan,
Aye.
Mr. Kalaki,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Ms. Chan,
Aye.
Nam Jack, I, student board member. All right, now we go to item number 13B, resolution number 11. The Board of Education with respect to the layoff of classified employees, Ms. Judy Parenti.
Hi, good evening, President Jack, members of the board, student board member, Superintendent Dr. De La Torre, and members of the executive team. This evening, I am here to present resolution number 11 to the board for approval. Effective October 8th, 2021, Assembly Bill 438 was passed, which requires school districts to notice classified employees of layoff prior to March 15th. This is comparable with the way certificated employee layoffs are also implemented. Prior to Assembly Bill 438, districts were able to give classified employees a 60-day notice of layoff anytime throughout the school year. In accordance with AB 438, this resolution is being brought to the board to recommend a reduction of 6.19 FTE for special education paraprofessionals and a 1.0 FTE budget analyst position for the 2022-2023 school year. There is a need to reduce the number of special education paraprofessionals due to a few reasons. Students are graduating from 12th grade, and we also have students matriculating from 8th grade to 9th grade, and who potentially will need less aid support. As such, we are recommending approval of resolution number 11. This is an action item and would need a vote.
Right, are there any questions? Mrs. Ryan? Okay, Mr. Kalaki?
Yeah, I have some questions. These 6.19 positions, how much money are we talking about? Is going to be saved by cutting these positions?
Approximately 30 to 40,000, depending on where they are on the salary schedule and if they have their benefits.
30 to 40,000 for all 6.19.
Oh, no, I'm
combined?
sorry. There are approximately that much per position. I'm sorry, apologize.
So approximately 240,
$250,000
$250,000.
approximately.
Okay, and these aides assist in allowing the district to meet its IEP obligations?
Yes.
And are they needed to meet IEP obligations?
So I'm sorry if I may interject. We have done an analysis with our Director of Special Education and all 4 principals in looking at the number of instructional assistants that we have throughout the district. When we do a layoff, it is done by seniority, just like it's done with certificated staff. So you have to take all of the instructional aides within that classification and put them in seniority order. And so we know that currently, as it stands right now, that we are overstaffed with instructional aides. And so we have to move aides around next year because the least senior person working with a particular student is the one that's going to get laid off, but maybe that kid still needs an aide. So that means another aide is going to have to come in and provide that student with support. So we are not going to be in violation of any of our IEPs. We are just going to have to move people around because of the way that reductions in force are prescribed by law in terms of seniority. So we will not put the district in a position of liability in terms of not providing service to students who have that written into their IEPs. The reason for us presenting this resolution to the board now is because, as Mrs. Parenti explained, AB 438 requires now that we do give classified employees notice prior to March 15th. So we used to be able to do it in May, right? When we have more enrollment information, we have more information on the IEPs, but we can't do that now because of the way the laws have changed. So we now have to look at where we are at this point in time in terms of staffing. And as Mrs. Parenti explained, we have kids that are matriculating from 8th grade into 9th grade that no longer need aid support in the IEPs for next year. We have kids that are graduating from San Marino High School that no longer need aid support. So we are overstaffed by 6.19 FTE currently. And if that changes, we are going to rescind notices, but we don't know that that's going to change right now. So we're not going to be in a situation where kids that have IEPs don't have an aid. Unfortunately, we can't pick and choose who we're going to lay off. It all has to be done by seniority.
Yeah, I understand that. I appreciate that. But even though we may have some kids graduating from the high school and others coming into the high school, these 6.19 positions are only at the high school, or they are district-wide?
District-wide in some cases, right?
They're district-wide. The Director of Special Education has made this number of recommendations, and she will, based on IEPs, look at staffing for next year and place the special education paraprofessionals where they're needed at different school sites. We do move them around every year regardless based on the needs of the students.
And when are these IEPs conducted?
Throughout the year, but at the end of the year, I believe they do the triennials, and if they move to a new school, there's another IEP that's prescribed for that.
I've been contacted by some people that were concerned that these aides would be required to meet IEPs of our students. And so for that reason, I do have concerns that we're going to potentially put ourselves in a situation where we are not meeting the needs of our students, or even potentially facing litigation on these issues, because that's sometimes where it goes. I know that in some recent board meetings, we've set aside about $10 million in various reserve accounts that money could be moved in and out of those accounts. One of which I believe, unless I'm wrong, and perhaps you could correct me, is $2.5 million for the Barth Athletics Complex. Is that correct? Is that the amount that we set aside for COP payments?
COP payments?
Yeah.
1.5. Yeah, because
Okay.
the COP payments are about $500,000 a year.
Okay, so 1.5 is sitting in an account to pay for COP payments, which we also just received 2.6 million, which could also be used for that type of account. Is that correct? We could take the 2.6 million that we just got from the state as
Yeah.
reimbursement for that capital expense. And couldn't we put that into the same account? Because that money would go for a capital expenditure, which would be the COP on the Barth Athletics Complex, correct?
That's not a capital expenditure. It's not capital.
That's a debt.
Yes.
How we spent that money was not dependent upon issuance of that debt.
And that's
correct?
one-time money, not ongoing funds, and salaries and benefits are ongoing. And the issue is this.
I'm sorry, can I just, sorry to interrupt.
yes, of
but
course.
What was your response?
I need to check. I'm not absolutely sure.
And then I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was just going to say, the issue is this: we are now forced as a school district to notice classified employees only once a year. If we chose not to notice them now, the next time that we would be able to notice them would be next March. So you would have, you'd be overstaffed by 6.19 FTE in the classified arena for an entire year. Our school district is going to be deficit spending. We are declining in enrollment. I think that we need to be very conservative fiscally in terms of how we're managing our money. That is my opinion as a professional. That is my opinion based on what I know in terms of working with our budget.
Right. And we had in place reductions for next year of at least $500,000. And so this is part of that as well.
Mhm.
even setting aside the COP reserve fund, there's other funds that held another $8.5 million, correct?
Yes, but again, those are all one-time monies, and we're talking about salaries that are ongoing.
Correct, but we're talking about $250,000 compared to $8.5 million. So the numbers,
The board assigned those, and that can be designated by the entire board to do something different with those. But those dollars are reserved for different areas. And we can talk about that when I talk about the second interim. But that's sort of how we've been allocated at this point in the time.
Yeah, and the board can make that decision. It's up to the board to decide what to do. Again, I will say, we're just looking at, where the need is. We're gonna make sure that our kids are taken care of. That is our first priority. We are currently spending about $2 million on AIDS.
I don't know.
I think, yeah, the last time we looked at it was about $2 million of our budget on AIDS. AIDS are valuable. They are absolutely needed. Everything that was said by the aides who were here is true. That is true. Kids in special ed need support. In a lot of cases, we're going to make sure that they get that support. And it's unfortunate the way the system works. It's all by seniority, has nothing to do with performance. It has nothing to do with what we would like to do, what we desire to do. It's just the way that the ed code is written in terms of reduction in force.
well, I understand the March 15th deadline, but I also do have concerns that, as you're saying, everything that the aides that spoke tonight said was correct. And one of the things that was correct was that these aides are needed to meet our IEP obligations. And so if that is in fact correct, then we don't want to be cutting our aides because we need to be meeting our IEP obligations. And when we have $8.5 million in reserve accounts, and we're only talking $250,000, that would very well be spent in much more expensive alternative processes. If the IEPs are not met, then I think it would not be prudent to be cutting our aides and putting our ability to meet IEPs and meet the needs of our students in jeopardy.
Can I ask a clarifying question on something you said? We are currently meeting our IEP needs with the number of staff we have currently. These layoffs will be taking effect considering the exiting and matriculation of students over at the end of this school year.
Yes.
If it turns out that we need to rescind some of these in order to meet any additional IEPs that arise, will we do so?
Absolutely.
So I think this is a timing issue.
Yes, it is.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
These are the worst things that we ever have to do. It was very frustrating that the state chose to make this decision because they actually tied our hands financially while not giving us any funding to actually compensate for the change in policy. If I'm not mistaken, Dr. Azuka, we have $5.1 million in our special education fund that we're going to be discussing in our interim budget out of $8 million total to meet our federal mandates. So that's a lot of money that becomes an ongoing cost, which is what we are trying to alleviate for the future. Is that all correct?
Yes.
Can I have, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Go ahead.
right.
I
So
can-
we have to kind of move it along, and unless you're gonna say anything differently, I think we have other questions we'd like to ask as well.
Yeah, just quickly to follow up with what Board Member Chan is saying. When did we first get notice that this March 15th deadline was going to be imposed by state law?
It's been discussed for probably about a year, and it was signed into law in
October 8th, 2021.
And is there something within the structure of our organization that would have stopped us from doing all IEPs prior to March 15th so that we would then know what our IEP needs would be prior to the March 15th deadline?
Our IEP needs to change constantly.
Yeah, they do. It's not one
IEPs.
size fits all with IEPs. There are a lot of different factors that we take into consideration. They meet at different intervals during the year, depending on what's going on with the student.
They're
They all
annually,
have to
aren't they?
agree.
Aren't they annually done?
But they're not on a set date.
They're not on a
I
set
haven't
date.
had, personally, it's not, it's on an annual basis, but it's not on a, not everybody can do it before March. It's not a set date such as that.
So that can't happen in the future so that we know what our needs would be, so that we can actually plan ahead.
Well, it's also attendance issues as well, if I'm correct. But that is something that we might want to discuss, but in terms of, right, the fluidity of students going, you know, from
Yeah.
whether they're going to stay in this district, whether or not they're going to need that based on an IEP, I think that's fluid. But I have a question. How soon can we rescind? Right? We're bound by this because the state requires us to do this, but how quickly can we rescind and try to bring, you know, these very valuable employees back?
So this layoff does not go into effect until the beginning of the next year, really. So our current aides that are being affected by this will work through the end of this year.
But when will we be
So-
able to tell them, you know, as soon as we can, that, you know, we would like to retain them based on the fact that we have
Yeah. So
these needs and.
right. So again, it's not a set time because it depends on, we may get some students moving into the community that will be assessed for an IEP. And, you know, that takes time. It could be that we're going to have kids moving into the community who already are on an IEP in another school district. So those things come in at different intervals over the summer. We have, you know, a whole lot of stuff going on at different intervals. So as we discover what is necessary, if we see that we need an aide, we're going to, you know, go to the list, and the most senior person on the reemployment list will come back first. We will bring them back in that order as quickly as we can, as soon as we know.
And in addition, along with the certificate layoffs, there is a final notice that will go in May. So if we're able to recognize a need prior to that, then they would not receive, no, classified as well.
Okay, you do that for this AB, okay.
So if between now and May, if we determine a need, we would not issue final layoff notices for those individuals.
And then the one thing that I want to make absolutely certain of 100%, right? First of all, we're doing this because the state requires us to do so, but I do not in any way, and, you know, speakers have brought up the fact that, you know, it may affect students' IEP, it may affect their education, it may affect them socially and emotionally. And I just want to make sure, right, that none of this, right, will affect the students who we serve in this community.
We're only reducing the number of aides that will not be needed next year that we know of right now. We're not reducing aides that are needed.
All right. And then if the aides are needed, right, we will bring them back as soon as possible.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So that would be priority number 2. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. We, you know, again, it's not based on performance. We may have the best aides that we have employed sitting in this room right now. And the only reason that they're getting laid off is because of their seniority date. It has nothing to do with their performance, and the work that they're doing with our students is, I'm sure, exceptional. And it's an unfortunate process. But right now we are overstaffed by 6.17. That's what we know based on the IEPs. And so we move people around to make sure that every student who requires aid support within their IEP is going to have that.
Okay, I just want to make sure that, Mr. Chang, do you have any questions?
Oh, yeah, I listen for, so the each of you are coming, you know, I actually am very excited to talk, you know, as you know, that I've been here the 21 years. Yeah. So the student always first, but besides put the student first, we always need to understand to maintain the student first, what we need to do in order to to make the students stable and we can educate them. Actually, this is the timing issue. And this is not our issue, it's from the government, you know, they mandate, they have a schedule, you know, each calendar year. So I think we should not fear we are the kill the person or we don't put a sympathy because we are the school board member, you know, the citizen elect to us, because they depends on us, make a judgment. So you will say how come that's 20 years we haven't filed bankruptcy? Because we have the 5 school board, we use our best knowledge, judgment, and follow the in compliance of the government regulation. Yes, this is kind of like a push. Yeah, each of our 5 get a push. And then even come to the humanity issue. But this is not just the humanity issue. We need to conduct the business. When I say business, people probably say, this is not a business. This is the business, make this school district, this whole school to survive. So we need to know what is our role. This morning, I have a conversation with a person, they very like the school, take care of the school. But I said, after the 20 years, I cannot find any penny. We can squeeze. Each year, pass or tax. So every 6 years, we may have a hiccup, we did not pass. And then the parents, they scare and then they want to leave. When they leave, who's here? Our 5. And eventually, if we are not put in the positive, the budget, so they lay off our 5. I don't mean I scare and then I don't scare they lay off us. But it's most important how to maintain this school district forever. That's the point. Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. John.
I said everything. Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Ryan. All right, would someone like to make a motion to approve resolution number 11?
I move the motion to approve.
Mr. Chang, a second.
A second.
Mrs. Chan, roll call vote, Mrs. Ryan,
Aye.
Mrs. Chan,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mr. Kalaki,
Nay.
Nam Jack, aye. Motion passes. We're now going to go to number 13C, amendment of the 21-22 Board of Education meeting date. It is recommended that the board amend Tuesday, March 22 Board of Education meeting to Monday, March 21. Would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Someone like a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Kalaki, roll call vote, Mrs. Ryan,
Aye.
Mrs. Chan,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mr. Kalaki,
Aye.
Nam Jack, I, student board member. All right, 13D, 21-22 second interim financial report, Mrs. Pearl Izuka.
Good evening, President Jack, members of the board, student board member, executive cabinet, and members of the community. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about our second interim financial report. And I believe you all have a copy of this. So again, this is required by law that we are to report 2 times a year. The first interim, which is the actuals through October, and then this one, which is the second interim, and it's through the actuals through January 31st. We are then will recommend whether we are recommending to the board whether we are able to meet our financial obligations for the current year and the subsequent 2 fiscal years. And I can tell you up front that we are recommending a positive certification.
So these are the three types of certifications. And I've mentioned them before. Positive is that you're able to meet the current year and the next 2 years. Qualified is that it's questionable whether, well, one of those years out, you can meet your financial obligations. And negative is meaning that you can't either this year or in the following years. So let's move on to our assumptions for revenue. And we have assumed that we are declining enrollment and therefore our local control funding formula will go down. We are at a hold harmless where we're actually receiving 2846 per ADA. And we obviously don't have that as our average daily attendance at this point. We will start to see change following next year. We don't know what that change is at this point. We were thinking that we were going to have to look at this year's ADA to determine next year's formula for funding, but the governor has proposed that he's going to look at an average perhaps over the next 3 years. And there's several bills right now that are following through as to funding different ways. So they're all good news. We'll get a little bit of a step down rather than one swell swoop down. Since the last time we met, I had a budget projection. We don't see any changes in our parcel text projections. We have seen an increase in our facility use. So you'll see in a little bit that we've actually increased that particular area. And then we have actually booked the parent donations.
Oh, by the way, you know, the last two, they say the increase of the facility use, but I see for your projection look like not adjust to increase.
Well, oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, let's move on and see the exact numbers. Okay, so the student enrollments changed just a little bit from the last time. And I want to share with you that what we're comparing is your current board approved budget. So since the first interim, we brought some budget adjustments to you for approval. I think it was at the January 25th meeting. So this is the update. All of the information is from that point forward. We want to keep you most current so that we don't have any surprises at the end of the year. We're adjusting the budget as we see. And particularly with federal funding, I want to address that because there is a big decrease, and I'll explain that in a few minutes. So again, LCFF is slightly changed a little bit because our supplemental grants number went down, but for the most part, our unduplicated count hasn't changed, and we have seen very little in our funding since I last spoke to you about our budget. The big one, though, is our federal revenue, and federal revenues are booked, or we account for them in a different way. You only get to count that revenue when you expend it. So if you don't expend it, you actually get it deferred to the following year. We're projecting right now that the cost for doing the HVAC system is not going to actually be spent by June 30th. We believe it'll be spent next year just because of the timing and having to go out to bid and all of that. So we actually have decreased the revenue there by 1.4 million, along with the other programs that are with the ESSER 3, based on our projections that we believe we won't be spending this amount of money, so that at the end of when we close out the books, this won't drop out to the bottom line. We've already adjusted it down.
Can I ask your comment on the facility use revenue increasing? Would that have been on this slide?
It'll
here?
be up in just a moment.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So it would actually be here in the other local. It's included in that increase there. I think it was about 30,000. I think we increased in facility.
We increase.
Yeah, about 30,000.
Yeah, maybe 30,000, but I see the O is 30,000. So I thought I increased.
Yeah.
Okay, let me check again. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see here the revenues are
reflected based on assumptions, these are actual numbers. And then the pie chart again, this shows you all our revenue sources. And of course, San Marino is very special in that almost 27% of our dollars comes from local funding. One of the highest, I believe, in the state, that in terms of local funding. So that this is again how it's broken out. Under the expenses, we already brought forward to you the salary increases and how that we gave, and we had that as a budget adjustment in January. So this again is now the actual step and column, and the benefit increases, we've included that. Salary and benefits have correspondingly increased based on those increases we've given. We have looked and seen that we're not spending in the areas of supplies as much, and so we've lowered that as well. And I'll show you that in just a moment. We have increased slightly in our operating expenditures, and our equipment costs have gone down as well. We did adjust for our 3% required reserve. So here are the actual numbers. All those, the difference again, the column, very left column are the categories. The next column are the budget that you've approved thus far. And now this is our projection for second interim. And you can see that the big numbers are books and supplies, which is a positive. We're lowering that budget by 1.2. A lot of those are site carryover dollars that we think that they're not going to be spending by the end of the year. So we have already lowered those budgets so that that doesn't drop to the bottom line. That will be a surprise for us. We've already made that adjustment. We had a slight increase in services. So you can see that number of 266. And then we have savings in the equipment area as well. And this chart basically shows about 74% of our expenses are on salaries and benefits. And then all the other different categories are included there. And then as Board Member Chan mentioned, we have to contribute 5.1 to special education. That is because the cost is about 8 million and we only receive about 3 million in revenue to cover the special education program. And because it is a mandated program, we must contribute to make that program whole. So the general fund contributes 5.1 million. We're hoping that that will stabilize and hopefully go down, but we'll continue to see. Generally speaking, we expect it to go up. And then we do have a contribution to maintenance as we must contribute to our deferred maintenance program. So there's a slight increase there. So when we take an overall look at our budget, we started out at 12.2 million. We're deficit spending now. That is less revenue than expenses, about 730,000. So now our ending balance is 11.5. Of that, 1.4 million is for the 3% reserve. We've set aside 2 million for the site carryover. Again, you saw that where we lowered the budgets and that's going to fall down to this ending balance here. We've assigned for future years 1.9 million for stabilization, cash flow of 2 million, the COP payments of 1.5, and then declining enrollment 2.5 million. And then again, those assigned balances, the board made the decision to assign those categories. And we also have our revolving fund and stores. Going forward, we need to make the adjustments as we go forward because of student enrollment declining, that we need to make reductions.
We're going to see less funding. And so you see that we've started making adjustments on salaries. We hope we can control and not have too much of an escalation in special ed costs. Salaries and step and column will need to continue to, those are going to increase and we need to adjust. Health benefits, we've gotten notice that I think Kaiser was 3.92 for next year, so we'll need to increase that. Cal STRS and PERS will go up, we'll need to adjust those. So therefore, on our multi-year projections, we have put in $500,000 for reductions for the next year. So in summary, we're recommending that the board approve the second interim financial report, that we file a positive certification, that we can meet our current and the next 2 years obligation, and also that we have looked at our cash and we're in a good cash position, and that we're able to meet our obligations. So I'll take your questions at this time.
All right, we'll start with Mrs. Ryan.
Not at this time.
All right, Mr. Kalaki.
So the expenditures were approximately 2 million less than what we had anticipated.
I'm sorry, where are we?
On the expenditures, I think it's slide 9.
Yes,
We're
to answer your question,
$2
yes.
million better than we thought. we would
Yes, we're projecting that at this point.
be. And so now we were not running a deficit based on the previous budget, correct?
We were not, but we also, that was before we gave the salary increases.
Did those result in a budget deficit?
Yes.
Of how much?
I don't know exactly how much.
More or less than 2 million that we're looking at here?
I think it was 2.1, the salary increases at cost, right?
Okay, so approximately the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chang,
No, not this moment, yeah.
Mrs. Chang.
I'm sorry, can you go back to something you said?
Yes.
So we are deficit spending this year now.
Yes, we are.
And if I'm reading this budget correctly, and it's entirely possible I'm not, but I think the number was about 731,000.
That's correct.
So by deficit spending, that means that we are spending more money than we are taking in now.
That's correct.
And that is because of the raises, which we gave because they were well deserved, but that is the effect and impact of
Exactly.
that.
Yes.
Okay. I'm very concerned, and I'm hoping you can allay some of my concerns here, because I'm starting to look at these past 3 years out. I love that we got one-time money and we got what everybody seems to think is a lot of it. But when I sit here and I start projecting out how much money we have this year in that fund, in those funds, and I start looking at, okay, now we're going to increase our cost of operations by another I think I came up with somewhere around 1.8 million, because we have to keep factoring in the cost of the 3% that we gave this year. So that now goes into what our costs are next year. And that does not go into whatever raises we give in the future.
Correct.
And then on top of that, we are still looking at declining enrollment.
Yes.
And we do still have COP payments to make, which we have earmarked, but at some point that 1.5 will go down to 0.
Yes.
Conservatively speaking, we get that fund balance down to 0 by about 5 years from now, if we're lucky and being conservative.
Yes.
Does that sound approximate?
That's right. And that's why we're recommending that we have at least $500,000 in reductions next year. And the following year, continuing that 500 and adding another 500, unless we get another source of revenue in, or, or we get more kids. That would bring us more revenue. But we need more revenue, or if we don't get that, we're going to have to lower expenses.
I mean, that's sort of basic economy, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And when 74% of our money is in salaries, There's nowhere else to go.
So I get very concerned when we're only looking at, I like that we're looking at our budget in 3 years, but I get very concerned when I look past 3 years. And so I really would like to encourage us to start thinking about a 5-year financial plan. Because 3 years, we are paying our bills. 5 years, we are at risk of no longer being able to pay our bills. I don't know if anybody realizes, but we used to have to take these trans out before.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't make payroll. And we would have to do that repeatedly. And essentially we were taking loans, we were taking credit card, taking one credit card to pay another credit card.
Yes.
It's amazing that we're not doing that anymore. And it's because of COVID, frankly speaking. It was a financial windfall that none of us wanted and yet are very grateful to have. And the state is continuing to put categorical funding ahead of general funding.
Exactly.
We often do not qualify for because
Exactly.
we do not have the population that the state is seeking.
You're
to provide
absolutely
additional funding
correct.
for. So I would just really like us, I guess this is for Dr. Lynn. Welcome to the district financial office, Dr. Lynn.
No pressure.
My plea to you is to really start helping us figure out a way to come up with what are we doing 5 years from now, 10 years from now, as Mr. Chang said, so that this district continues to be resilient financially. Because we have existed for so long and so many decades, and yet I am very concerned that we will see significant losses in student programs and staffing that just as we're seeing now. So, sorry, that's kind of my big spiel. I'm just gonna forego all the rest of my questions that I asked privately.
So just real quick, I've been trained by School Services of California. I'm sure Pearl can vouch for this. We should never spend one-time money on ongoing expenses. That is something that will get you into trouble faster than anything else. So everything that you just said is absolutely spot on. Thank you for recognizing that and understanding how this works, because it is very fragile and volatile. And because we are in a pattern of declining enrollment, we are going to continue to get less revenue unless we can stabilize our enrollment and grow our enrollment. So we need to pay some attention to that area as well. And I know that Dr. Lynn will come in with some help from Pearl and come up with a wonderful long-term financial plan that will keep us, thriving.
And I am optimistic. I said earlier, I do feel we are on this upward trajectory. We have amazing programs. We have a lot of excitement building for students to stay in San Marino schools. At the Carver Parent Party, I was amazed at how many alumni we had because people are moving back and bringing their families here because of the reputation of what they got, but because of what their kids will get. And I feel like we need to hang in there. We need to hang in there for 5 years to be able to really ride that upward trajectory that I do see on the horizon. Our students are amazing. They deserve programs that are going to match their skills and capacity.
So last agenda, I did not finish what I'm trying to say. That this morning, I'm thinking read this and thinking where the money come from. So lastly, I think I wish to build up the alumni of some high school, and trace them when they see they are successful. Maybe they want to write a big check. So that's the last vehicle for this community, because the parcel tax you continue to renew, but that just pay for the fixed cost for the stabilize the current staffing. Yeah. Okay.
Can I move to approve this second interim report?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kalaki. Can someone second?
I second.
Roll call vote. Mrs. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Kalaki?
Aye.
Mr. Chang?
Aye.
Mrs. Chan? Aye. Jack? Aye. Student board member? Thank you very much, Ms. Suzuki. And then last item, any items for communications with the superintendent? No. All right. Thank you.